Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Welcome back to Fallout 4, where today we're going to be taking a look at the 44 Magnum. This is the big iron of Fallout. It's also a weapon that you can get surprisingly early. There's actually one just outside of Sanctuary, if you know where to go, where you can just walk across the river and there's a guy that is dead and he has a 44 right next to him. Bullets are going to be a little bit harder for you to find, at least early on, but they can be obtained, especially into the mid and late game. For the stats of the 44 Magnum, this one does 48 damage per shot, which is quite high damage for a handgun. This has 29 damage per second, doesn't shoot very fast. This is a single action only revolver for some reason, I don't know why. This has 119 range, so it has very long range for a handgun, 66 accuracy, which is okay in terms of accuracy. It can get better with some upgrades. This holds 6 shots in it, like a standard revolver, weighs 4.2 weight, and it costs 35 action points to use in VATS, so a decent amount of action points to be using. Since you can find the 44 early on, this can be a pretty decent weapon to hold on to if you need to take down something big with it early on, which is good. For the general pros of the 44 Magnum, this one has really high damage, and it has very long range for a handgun. It doesn't have the longest range out of any gun, but it probably has the longest range out of any of the handguns, or at least what you want to consider a handgun, because technically I think the plasma rifle has the longest effective range, but that's if you put the pistol grip on it and then give it the sniper barrel, and for some reason it has like 300 range on it. But for a standard pistol, this one probably has the most. The only real con for the 44 is just kind of the ammo. It's not going to be super common in the early game. You can buy it from vendors, but it's going to be kind of expensive, so you're probably not going to have a whole lot of it. And once you get to the mid and late game, this isn't going to be as much of an issue. The main perks that you want to be taking with the 44 would just be Gunslinger. Gunslinger is really the only one that fits this. You can't convert this into a pistol carbine and use that as a rifle. It has to be a pistol, so just go with Gunslinger if you want anything. It also can't be fully automatic, so Commando can't go for it either. For an overall rating for the standard 44 Magnum, I'd say this is a very solid B tier. It is above average at kind of everything. It's a very good handgun, and it can get even better with upgrades, so let's talk about the upgrades. First up, for a receiver, I would just put the advanced receiver on here. There isn't really a better option than that, so just put that one on there because it's going to give you the most damage. For a barrel, you could honestly go with anything. I usually go with the bull barrel or with the long barrel. I think that's better than the snub nose barrel, but even the snub nose barrel isn't really that bad, especially if you only want to be using this at close range. It's perfectly fine then. For a grip, I'd go with the comfort grip. It's either this or the standard grip, and this one's just better overall, so throw that one on there. And then for sights, you can really go with any sight. Technically, the scope will get you the most amount of damage. Well, either the scope or the recon scope, but that's only if you have the magazine. It will only be a 5% increase, so I don't find that to be such a selling point of this one, and usually I'll just go with the reflex, or I'll just go with the iron sights, because the iron sights are pretty decent on the 44 as well. This does make it quite a bit stronger, and I would throw this one up into A tier. Surprisingly, this one can get stronger than the hunting rifle, even when it's in 50 caliber, which is very bizarre. But yeah, this is just a stronger version of that, basically. It's just that you do have to be going with a pistol build rather than going with a rifle build. There is also quite a few unique versions of the 44, so let's talk about each of them. First up is Eddie's Piece. Eddie's Piece you can obtain from Eddie Winters after you kill him, so you can take this right off of him. And this one is kind of an interesting revolver because it does have its own unique effect, as well as it usually comes modded out with a scope, but also the snub barrel on it for some reason. As for stats, this is basically the same stats as the regular 44, so 48 damage per shot, 28 damage per second, 125 range, and 81 accuracy. This is because it does come with a scope, so that's kind of nice. Still holds 6 shots and weighs slightly more at 5 weight. And for the unique ability, this one has Crippling. Crippling gives you 50% more limb damage. That is pretty good. It is better than the standard 44. I don't think Crippling is one of the best modifiers. It can be depending on what enemy that you're fighting, because if you're fighting melee enemies like ghouls, or you're fighting Deathclaws, you cripple their legs and then they just can't move, and it's an easy win then. Against ranged enemies, it's not really going to affect them that much, but I mean, you could cripple their arms and potentially cause them to drop their weapon, so that's kind of nice. Eddie's Piece is just a better 44, so I'd also put this one up into A tier. Our next one is called Kelloggs Revolver. This one you actually get from Kellogg during the main quest, and this one's kind of interesting too. This one usually comes with a bull barrel on it. Aside from that, it comes with pretty much standard 44 stats, a little bit more accuracy because of the longer barrel, which is nice. But this one comes with the Lucky ability on it. So Lucky makes it so you can refill action points on crit hit. And that is pretty good. That's actually fairly strong for a VATS build, and since you're going through the main campaign, you only have to go through about half of the main campaign to where you're confronting Kellogg, or maybe a little bit longer than half of the main campaign. So you can get this one fairly early on if you want to be rushing the main story. Lucky, in my opinion, isn't really one of the best, but I don't really use VATS, so that doesn't mean much coming from me. I'd also put Kellogg's Revolver into A tier as well. It's pretty decent overall. And then our last 44 that you can get is called the Gainer. You can just find this one, which is pretty awesome. You can actually rush it right away. And this one you just have to find by solving a little puzzle. It's not even a very difficult puzzle because it gives you the answer when you just look inside of the room that it's in. And then you can pick this up off the dead body. The Gainer also comes with some mods where it usually has a reflex sight and a bolt barrel, so that's kind of nice. But this one does have the Incendiary status effect on it, which is 15 points of fire damage. That's okay. It's kind of nice to go and get this right away because it's a guaranteed legendary and you can just rush it right at the very beginning of the game. So it's going to be better than a regular 44. It's just Incendiary is not really the best legendary effect either because it doesn't stack multiple times. It will just keep resetting the fire once you hit something, which I mean is still extra damage, so you are still getting something out of this, but it's not an insane amount of extra damage because the 44 just doesn't shoot very fast and you're not really going to be relying on the fire to take down enemies. Or at least I would assume that you wouldn't. So the Gainer is also just a better 44 overall, and I'd probably also put this one into A tier. The 44 Magnum can absolutely be S tier, especially with certain legendary effects. I just don't think with any of these. If there was a legendary one that had 2-shot or instigating or just mighty on it, those ones would all be probably S tier. They would all be really, really good. These ones are still very decent, and like I could see Kellogg's being argued to S tier if you're going with a VAT-specific build. I don't use VATS, so I don't really use it. There is also one other 44 that you can get from the Creation Club called Early Retirement. This one can have different effects on it, and it does have its own unique legendary effect on it, where it deals 25% extra damage towards synths. That's okay. It's basically just a worse version of Troubleshooter, so if you got a 44 Troubleshooter on it, that one would also be better than this, but I mean, this would still be something if you wanted to buy it. I'm not going to buy it. There is also one other 44 that we should be talking about too, which is the Western Revolver. This is included with the Nuka World DLC. You can either go there and get this, or legendary enemies can drop legendary Western Revolvers. And since it uses the 44 round, you can actually just use it in the base game, which is pretty awesome. It's not like some of the other DLC weapons where you have to go specifically to the DLC, like the handmade rifle, to buy its ammo. So this one is quite a bit better. The Western Revolver for stats has 60 damage per shot, so more than a 44, 36 damage per second. They shoot at pretty much the same speed. This one has 119 range, 66 accuracy, holds 6 shots, weighs 5.2 weight, so it's slightly heavier, and it costs 40 action points to be using in VATS. This one is just a straight upgrade to the 44 Magnum in pretty much every way. It just has higher base stats than it. So I'd put the standard Western Revolver up into A tier. It is very good. It's just a very good revolver, and if you want to rush Nuka World early on, you can absolutely get this because you don't even really need to fight anything. You do need to fight your way through the gauntlet, but once you're through the gauntlet, you could actually just go over to Dry Rush Gulch, talk to the sheriff there, and he'll give you one of these, or one of the robots will give you one of them. I don't remember if it's the sheriff. I think it's the other one that wants to duel you, and you just get a Western Revolver there, which is pretty awesome. There is attachments that can go on this as well. So this one, I would recommend the Advanced Receiver on it because it just gives you the most amount of damage. A long barrel because it's either the long barrel or the short barrel. Sharpshooter's grip on here because it's either that or the regular grip. And then for sights, scope technically is the strongest, but I really like either the iron sights or the reflex sight on it. Those ones I just find to be a lot more useful for the Western Revolver. And the souped up Western Revolver, I would actually probably put into S tier just by itself. It's probably the best handgun in the entire game, not counting legendary effects. If you do get a legendary Western Revolver though, it is really good. I've had ones that are mighty, which is insane. That's actually really strong. Instigating, which is even stronger. That's probably one of the best sniping weapons in the entire game if you get an instigating Western Revolver. About the only thing that's going to be better than that is like a Gauss rifle, and either way it's way overkill regardless. 2-shot can be insane on this. Wounding can be pretty good on this, even though it doesn't shoot quick. Wounding is just really good in general. There's a lot of really good effects that you can get on a Western Revolver. If you do get one of those, it's also probably going to be S tier. Tell me your thoughts on the 44 and the Western Revolver down in the comments below. How do you like them? And have you gotten any crazy legendaries? Because sometimes I do get some pretty good Western Revolvers. They're kind of few and far between. They don't show up that often, but it's always exciting when you do get one. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.